Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Good evening, folks. It is election night, and it looks like 21 of us were smart and either did our voting early this morning, or we already did one of the pre-polls. Good on you for doing that if you did. And yeah, absolutely. We're going to try and keep it under an hour each and every Monday going forward. So we'll hopefully get you to the polling booths before we're done. How's everybody been? How was your weekend? How was the weather? Weather was fantastic out this way. I'm not sure where everybody's. Kevin, what was it like out in Manitoba? James, how you doing, my friend? Jason Barnucz is in the house. Yes, sir. K-Dog, how you doing? Steve Shaw. Speaking of Steve Shaw, we'll start. We went to Serena's Celebration of Life on Saturday out in Coburg. And Steve, I can honestly say, dude, you have got quite the support group out your way. I know if anybody doesn't know, the Shaws are dealing with the loss of our beloved Serena. But what a show of, I would just say, strength and support this Saturday, watching all of the Shaw, the Waters. I mean, how many different families showed up to that celebration of life? But anyway, Serena, we will never forget you, but we certainly did a great job trying to remember you. On Saturday, there were some great setups and displays that the family had put together, as well as a video, and it was shoulder to shoulder. She was a packed house. So anyway, as I said, it was nice to see, because no family needs to go through that alone, and the Shaws certainly are not going through it alone. But good on you for doing that, and good on everyone who showed up. On that note, the CFN Serena Slush Fund, it is still on. It goes till midnight this Monday. So the last bid can be cast at midnight this coming Monday. Not this Monday, the following Monday. We have 2 prize packs that we are going to add to, hopefully tonight. One courtesy of Sid Fish's Jigs. Tyler Russell has sent me some photos, so I'm going to be able to add that prize pack and donation, as well as a donation from Chasing Ice Charter and our good friend Ed McKenzie, who stepped up to the plate and has offered up a nice prize pack as well. There's so much giving. People understand what it is we're trying to do. It is a slush fund. One day, a CFNer is going to have a bad day, and we want to, turn that frown upside down and help out when we can. So, as I said, hopefully, when that bad day comes and our 7 legacy members get your vote, or you get their vote, we can hand over a buffer of cash that will help at least comfort some of the blow of whatever it is that you folks unfortunately come across. But yeah, stay tuned to that. Lots of great bids, lots of great prizes. We're going to do a fantastic bang-up job trying to promote the heck out of them this week, so stay tuned to that. Obviously, the format tonight, it's ladies' night, and I love ladies' night. We've got a fantastic guest. Wait till you meet Christine and the initiative that she's undertaking. It is top shelf, top notch, and we're proud to have her on the show tonight. But that will be the first half hour. The second half hour will be the entire panel on together. So here's what I want you to do. Hold your questions till we get to all four of us slugging it out, in this ring, in that corner. No, it'll be basically, we're going to be discussing your questions, your viewpoints, anything that has you puzzled that you might want some clarity on. Wait for it. But at the end of the Ladies' Night segment, we will be talking to the panel. And speaking of Ladies' Night, let's bring on our special guest host, Yvonne Brown.
Hi, Scotty. How are you?
Well, I'm fantastic. And I heard you had an adventurous weekend.
Really? Where did you hear that?
Somebody told me. I mean, you caught some fish, but you'd also mentioned that you went for a dip too.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Explain that, because it happens to us all.
So first of all, it was our first ever Gals and Pals tournament run by Ontario Women Anglers. So we had 16 teams, and they were from everywhere from Kapuskasing, Thunder Bay, Owen Sound, Ottawa, and we had a fantastic day. So anyways, Tom and I fished together, and what we do traditionally is just kind of net each other's fish, then lay the net down on the boat with the basket still outside or in the water. And normally I would kneel down and take the fish out, but for whatever reason I leaned over, and then a wave kind of hit. We had a bit of a wind, and I lost my balance, and I went, I'm going in. I knew, but I won't get into the whole thing. But for anybody who ever finds themselves in that situation, the best thing to do is don't panic, right? I knew I was going in. I said, don't panic, stay calm. And it's not just for your own self, but for the person who is helping you, because I can't stand hysteria and people lose their mind and you don't think clearly. But I knew I was safe. Shore was 30 feet away. The big motor wasn't running. The water was, warm. I'm wearing clothing that would restrict me. So I knew I'd be okay. I was right by the boat. But still, my phone is toast.
Phone is toast, but you are still with us, and safety is paramount when it comes to you on the water. And I admire you about that. So as I said, you'd have no reason to panic. Someone like yourself who has got plan A, plan B, plan C already figured out before the boat leaves the dock. So that's awesome. But
and we ended up second, which is a bonus. So.
Congratulations on. Oh yeah, K-Dog just mentioned that. Congratulations on second place. That's fantastic. Well, you make quite the team. So that was a virtual event that you were hosting. Are there any other upcoming events that OWA is going to either be hosting or I would say unveiling virtually or otherwise?
Well, we might look at a steelhead event later this year. Again, we haven't really had any in-person things this year. All of our stuff has been done remotely. So we'll see what happens. Everything depends on COVID, right? So we just it's really hard to plan in advance because of that, because things could change. But anyways.
It sounds like we might be going another year without our shows, our beloved shows. It is all rumor as it is right now. Nothing is edged in stone as of yet. But unfortunately, it might be yet another year before we get to see each other all at a show again. So that's unfortunate as well.
It is, but I'm okay with not being in those venues. So
yeah, makes sense.
The other thing I just wanted to mention was we finished up our 2021 fundraiser. We had a bunch of draws over. We had 9 draws every other week, and we raised just over $9,100. So I just wanted to say thank you for everybody who, gave a donation that we could use, promoted the draws, bought keychains, and helped out in any other way. So it really, really helped. It will help us going forward. And speaking of going forward, next year is our 10th anniversary. So so it's going to be a big year. And we're hoping again to hold some sort of event, and it might even be like a hybrid, like part of it in person and part remotely for those who can't come to Southern Ontario. So that's we're going to start making plans in the fall for that.
Sounds like an OWA live exclusive.
Yes, it is. We haven't talked about it online yet. So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, and you've talked about it before, but unfortunately, you almost have to kind of reinvent new ways to generate money for your clubs. I was talking to Jim earlier today about it, and I said that clubs like yours, OWA, that depend on these shows in order to meet your budget requirements each year. So it is quite the blow, but as I said, we will always be here to help you, whatever we can do. And I'm sure the rest of the community in the industry will do the same. But you said you raised $9,000?
Yeah, $91.20 to be exact.
Woo.
Yeah, that's before expenses. We do have expenses like shipping and other costs. And,
oh yes, I do know quite a bit about shipping. Yes.
Yeah,
shipping
but that was the gross amount.
Shipping is my favorite. So the guest tonight. Are you done your announcements?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, the guest tonight, Christine, and I know I'm terrible at pronouncing names.
Lapeer.
Lapeer.
The thing is Lapeer. She could correct me.
Okay, well, I'm sure she will. In fact, she's shaking her head in the background. No, I'm kidding.
No?
I'm kidding. Probably not. But anyway, tell us how you met Christine.
I don't know. I don't remember the first meeting, but she has been a member of Ontario Women Anglers for a few years. It may have been up at Elbow Lake. For some reason, I think of Elbow Lake, which is not like it's like 20 minutes from here, but we have like ice fishing events and summer events. I know she came to an event a couple of years ago at Balsam Lake, but she's, she fishes quite a bit. Her and her husband are very, very active. I believe she lives near or on the water, and I think that fishing has become therapy for her, just like it is for all of us, in some respect. And through her experiences with fishing and her background in mental health, she has formed a program. And I don't want to give too much away. I want her to explain it because I don't know all the details either. But it'll be nice to hear from her.
So that's the thing. Like I try to do my homework when you have these guests on, Yvonne, and I did have a very hard time trying to find information about Christine. I don't know if she's under the witness protection program. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, why don't we bring her in now so that we can stop guessing and we can start learning about our good friend and new CFNer, Christine
Lapeer, like it's
spelled. Okay, so there you go.
Rhymes with beer used to be my nickname in university. One day Lapeer. It's how you can remember.
Listen, Christine, welcome to the show. Honored to have you here. What I was doing today was trying to find out a little bit of background information in regards to some of the accomplishments that you may have achieved, or some of the stories, or any kind of post that you would put out that would sort of lead me in the direction of who you are, what your makeup is, and what has sort of built your passion. But you are a unique individual. Didn't find a lot, but what I did find was incredible. And you did an interview on CBC. CBC did a feature on you in regards to your program, which we'll get to in a second. But the background leading up to it, and I can certainly appreciate someone in your position that really doesn't want to talk about the past, and sort of what has brought you to mindful fishing, and sort of what you are as a person and the initiatives that you're trying to carry forward. But I would say the best way to describe your past work history is that you're a survivor. Would that be accurate?
100%. That's why I don't talk about my past so much. I'm not ashamed of it. It's formed who I am today, which I'm proud of. But there is a thing as vicarious trauma, and your war stories, and some people feel with PTSD they have to justify their diagnosis and why they may have gone off work, but that's not what it's about for me. It's about how I did survive it, and that there is hope for anybody who has been in the lowest of their places. And I've been there, and I made it, and it's all because of fishing. So I kind of like that you didn't know a lot about me because of this program. I do try to keep some things under the radar. A lot of what I do is confidential. It's not a secret. I've had some people say, "Can I go out?" and nobody knows. Well, that's not safe. And this, it's not what it's about, but definitely confidential. And I don't post about it. I don't talk about it. I just want people to know if they come out with me, it's a safe space.
So
yeah.
Before we bring in Yvonne, I have one last question that I want to ask, because when I was reading through some of what I saw, what was posted, some of the interviews that you did, there was a podcast that I believe you did as well. Took the time to listen and read all of that, but I didn't get a sense of, when did you find the correlation between fishing and healing?
I actually, it's funny that Yvonne has no idea about this, but it was that Ontario Women Anglers event out on Elbow Lake in the winter.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And it, I got to tell you, at that point, I had gone through every kind of treatment almost that there is out there for PTSD. I had, just got out of the hospital that I used to be a nursing supervisor at in Kingston. And I had to have transcranial magnetic stimuli. So that meant I went into the psych hospital every day for 5 weeks. I had my brain zapped, trying to bring whatever stimulation it had going on in there. Like, my brain was dead to the world at that point. That got me out to the point where I was willing to go out and try, but fishing was a kind of safe place for me. It was, non-threatening. It was women. It was safe. It was a low, there wasn't a lot of people at that event. So for me, I was like, Yvonne has no idea. I was barfing the night before. Like, it was a huge deal for me to show up to that. It was my first outing since my diagnosis and treatment, and being in isolation for 2 years since I left corrections. My illness was in corrections when I was a trained crisis negotiator in there. My job was, well, as you can imagine, in the federal penitentiary system. It got me sick, but, a couple years after treatment, medications, getting my brain shocked, all this stuff, fishing was good memories of my childhood, and fishing with my dad, like I think a lot of us, grow up doing. So I joined this group and I found it online, and I wanted to be an independent angler aside from just, my husband, because it was going to be my therapy and I wanted to be able to do it on my own. So when I went out, and it was actually Ava Wickens, one of the volunteers and people who've been affiliated with them for a long time, took a picture of me sitting right on Elbow Lake, and we had all gone out for the evening, and I was totally zoned out. And she sent me this picture of me just sitting on my bucket there with, like, not even knowing how to use my fish finder or anything. And my brain didn't think of anything for hours. Like, I didn't think of anything, like nothing. And that was the first time in years, and it gave my brain a break. And right from then I said, I got to ride with this. I got to do something with this. This is magic. What is this sorcery? I think with anybody who's had this illness and had this injury before, when you get that first bit of relief, it's a whole new world has opened up for you. And I've said that to some of the other women anglers from our group. Like, Jen Brooks is one of my friends, and we'll go fishing, and Jen, you're one of my healers. And she's like, shut up and pick up your rod and whatever. But I'm really grateful for Ontario Women Anglers, and for any of these groups, CFN, any group out there. You got to know that the impact you have on the people that aren't saying anything. They might be the quiet ones laying low that you don't know anything about, but just please know that you are providing that therapy and that healing to them. And it's so, so important to do what you're doing. And some of us take whatever we can from it. I learned a bunch of new skills that I carry forward, and I share that passion with people. And any women I come across, of course, I would, refer them to Ontario Women Anglers and CFN and get involved, do all the stuff. There is a place for everybody in fishing. And this is kind of my place, but it's so important that you just get as many people as you can out there. And that's what OWA and CFN and everything is about. And we all know that it's therapeutic, right? So I'm just trying to formalize it, put details to it. And eventually I would like it to be, recognized as a form of therapy, covered. The veterans have money, right? The veterans put research and money into this, and they know that it is therapeutic to the point where veterans, they don't have to pay for their fishing license. There's a reason for that, right? So I want to get some of that research done. I want to get those numbers. I just want to get people out about fishing and healing and being, and not just healing, but it's also preventative too, right? It's about self-care and Anyway, I can go on forever.
You're up, Yvonne.
I was just going to say, can we go back a little bit and just could you talk about, like, sort of your earlier days when you first started fishing and how like for me, I fished as a child, but I kind of lost interest in teenager, and it took me a while to get back. So what is the story behind where you are now?
It's so you know, and a bit of my trauma and my history, unfortunately. So I grew up fishing with my dad. That was great. Normal childhood, lovely summer memories like we all do. And I fished for recreation and that was fine. Unfortunately, at the same time, you know, about 15 years ago, my dad died. I got involved in a horrible relationship. It was horrible. And he sold my dad's fishing boat on me and took fishing away from me, which was, I think he knew deep down that it did something for me, right? So that's why I'm a really big advocate for women being independent and going fishing and not relying on anybody to get you out there, because somebody took that from me and I let them. And so obviously that relationship ended in a bad way, and we parted ways, and I've recovered since then. But I had a partner who was willing to just take me out fishing, and I reconnected with the water after 15 years of not being out there. And at that time, it wasn't therapy for me. I didn't realize what it was, but I was just back out there, right? I was out paying attention to nature and being outside and just being calm. And I was just doing nothing but throwing a wacky worm off the back of the boat. And I don't even think I caught anything, but I was out there and it started the process. But it really was Ontario Women Anglers that got me there. And once I had that kind of aha moment on the ice, after that, I said, okay, this needs to be my therapy. I need to be able to figure out how to sustain this, do it on a budget, and how I can carry it out throughout the year. So up to that point, I only fished for bass in the summer because that's what you did. Yeah. So I made a point of trying to catch a fish every day for a whole year, and I almost did it. December is a very hard month. Yeah. But I wanted it to be a therapy that anybody could do at any time of the year with whatever budget they have, from the shoreline, from a boat, or from the shoreline all year and on the ice, and just with your hand drilled auger or whatever. I just so I wanted to see if that was possible. And then after that, the program kind of formed shape, and I was more comfortable taking people out and kind of showing them my experiences and why it was so beneficial for me.
And you and your husband now, you do quite a few tournaments in sort of the Eastern Ontario, Kingston area. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we, like in my research for fishing, so in that year, I really tried to figure out what was the most therapeutic fishing, what should I really focus on getting people out. And, tournament fishing, bass fishing, there's about 5% of people that find it therapeutic. Mostly it's stressful and competition. But however, a lot of the first responders I take out have that competitive nature. So a lot of them, when I take them out, say, I would love to do a tournament with you. I'd love to see what that's about. So my guide, the fishing, that's his tournament. That's our fun fishing. And we do that a lot. But this year I actually joined Avid Anglers in Kingston. It's a solo fishing series. But my goal in doing that was I wanted to go and be a solo angler, run the boat, because hopefully next year I'm going to join Limestone, and I'm going to try and take a first responder out every tournament and just give them that exposure, see if that's something they want to do. But I wanted to kind of gain the confidence in doing that myself before I brought them out. So I did a couple tournaments. I came 6 out of 22 here on the weekend. So
wow, nice.
I'm going to do it. Let's go. Just wanted to try. Just, it's just doing it right. It's once you kind of get over that hump, it's a whole new world. So
yeah, well, that's great. It's a great story. And your work, I know that you're in the mental health field, and through your own personal experiences, and now this is why you're sharing what you know on the water and connecting other people and hoping to, I guess, give them some mental health relief as well.
That was it. As soon as I figured out that this was so healing, I felt my obligation was to share it with others. It was like, oh my God, have you guys tried this? And, and I found, and people talking, because I left corrections and now I'm working as a mental health nurse with the police. So I'm going out in the community on mental health calls. And of course I kind of jumped from, the gas into the fire and whatever the saying goes. Yes. But because of fishing, I'm able to go back to that work and I'm able to do it and stay healthy. And there's no way I would be doing the work I do without fishing. But it also gives me a lot of access to first responders. So, working with the police and working with corrections, and my partner still works with corrections, and, that he takes people out too, and he knows that we do this program together. So it gives me that access, and I really love working with them. And yeah, and people come out and they try it once and nobody's regretted it so far. So
yeah. Do you so I know that the program and yourself have got some media attention, which is great. Do you have and I know you said there's a lot of confidentiality involved with it. So how do people know how to get through you, like get to you, or
yeah, well, that's you know, I haven't had to. I started a Facebook group 3 years ago, and I haven't shared it yet because I haven't needed to.
oh
You know, I have a mindful fishing page on Instagram. I have like 100 some followers. It's usually people I've either talked to or I've taken out. I try to share some experiences on there, but it's really hard and I can't talk about people in their stories. And I really want to, but I try to just share my reflections out on the water and kind of the things that I figured out to be more therapeutic in my approach and strategy in fishing. And I've developed a program on psychotherapy called Brief Session Therapy. It's narrative therapy. And what I'm hoping in that 4 hours out on the water is that I can remind first responders of their resiliency, what they've survived before and how they survived it, but also give them some of the skills and just basic stuff that they can carry forward. And, it takes a lot of conversation with them to figure out what kind of angler they are, what they would be interested in doing going forward. Not everybody's interested in a boat. Not everybody wants to do shoreline. Some people want to compete. Some people, want to just do ice fishing. It's spending that time with them to figure out kind of and gearing a program to them. But also because it's so quiet and it's so down, it's so under the radar that I want to expand it, but I don't know how, because I don't know how many, nursing, anglers, first responder people are out there. So I have had some people show interest in volunteering, and I'm just trying to figure out what group might be the best for that. And just having a group of, I have some veterans that really want to take other veterans out fishing. Well, let's see how we can collaborate those gatherings. And that might be when I open up that group and just try to get a group of anglers and first responders and see who might be interested in doing it all. Cause I do want to expand it, but and the way I do it can be kind of, a therapy session, but some people just come out and they don't even talk, or they don't even fish sometimes. They just come out, and all I can do is give their brain a break. That's okay too. But we've made that connection, and we tend to stay in contact going forward regardless.
So what most people don't know either is that you don't charge for this.
No,
the expense all comes out of your pocket.
I'm going fishing anyway. You may as well come. And that's, there's no pressure. And some people get the jitters and they cancel on me last minute. That's fine. One day you will be okay with it. And just know that I won't hold it against you. I'm not angry. I'm going fishing anyway.
Yeah.
And you're always welcome to come. And sometimes it's just a couple hours out in the evening. Sometimes it's, on the weekends, but I do want to do my own fishing. That's important for me to stay well. And with my kids and all that stuff. But for sure, I try to keep like 4-hour sessions 1 day a week, geared to people. This right now, it's about 2 or 3 kind of sessions a week, but the winter, it slows down. I would love to get more people out in the winter. I find it the best time of year, but, I just, whatever. Some people just want to meet on the shoreline for a couple hours. Some people want to go out in the boat for the day. Some people want to do a tournament. I think that's a great thing about fishing. It's so versatile and can really fit anybody's needs.
And Yvonne, I'm sure you will attest to this. I don't know. The proverbial couch, laying on a couch and talking to somebody, you don't open up near as much as you do on a boat. I think it should all be replaced with a boat, some water, and a couple of fish. Because I'll tell you, I've had some folks open up out on the water. Much of it I will take to my grave out of respect for them. But it's amazing what a fishing rod, a boat, a nice, background does to open a person up. So Christina, I can only imagine some of the stories that you
there's some people who just want to go sit by the water and they don't even fish. They just will have a rod in their hand, because then nobody questions why they're there. Nobody wonders what you're doing. They'll leave you alone. And it's like a little secret if you're in an urban place, right? We really try to see what the barriers are to get people fishing and how we break them down. And, hey, I just want to go sit by the water. I know I'm not going to catch anything. We'll just grab a rod and go anyway. No one's going to question you.
Yeah.
We can work around it. It's, yeah.
Now
Sorry, go ahead. We got a couple questions in the comments. So by all means, you go ahead, Yvonne, and then I'll get to them.
Okay. I don't know why, but I'm not able to post anything in the comments tonight. It says something about live videos being monitored. Anyways, I tried to put up your Instagram link. And I also know that someone started a GoFundMe page. And I think the goal was $500. I don't know what it's up to now.
It's over. It's over. Well, last check 1,500 or so. I've had a bunch of. So that whole GoFundMe came from an accident. Actually, my partner, I had out on Big Rito Lake, and we were out pre-fishing for a tournament and just graphing, and like a lot of bass anglers do, you just have your rods laying out on the deck. We weren't wearing our life jackets. We were just going around slowly looking to see if there was any fish, and a rogue wake out of nowhere. I've been on that water a million times and I've never experienced anything like it, but we hit it straight on, thank God. If it was on the side, we probably would have capsized, but we lost all our gear. We lost everything. And my first thought was, oh my God, how am I going to take people fishing? Like I have my own boat that I take people out. It's just a little aluminum I keep in the lake here. And it's a good back lake, quiet, private boat, right? But I have like one rod for like one drop shot rod, one worm rod, one, panfish rod, and nothing to take people out. So I just put a post on my Mindful Fishing page and just said, hey, this crappy thing happened, but I'm a survivor. It's it's a lesson, carry on. We're going to move on, but I just might not have extra gear to take anyone fishing. So if people want to come, if you have your own gear, that's fine. But if not, I don't have that availability right now. I have to recover. So one, a police officer I have recently taken out, she started to GoFundMe and just said, no, you got to keep going. You've done so much for me. And I just took her out for half a day. It was nothing. But to know that I made that impact on her, and she wanted to start this GoFundMe so I could get people back out. And what we decided to do with the money is kind of work on some of those barriers that the excuses people give me for why they won't come out. Right. And sometimes it's clothing. Sometimes a lot of times actually it is clothing in the winter. And, we bought a portable hut now because when we go ice fishing, we're out exposed and a lot of people aren't into it. So, those things that people, the excuses they give me, because I just want it to be easy for you. Just come out, hop in the boat, everything's there, or hop on the ice and we'll go. So yeah, it's amazing what's come of it. And tragedy, it's in a weird way. I'm one of these people I'm thankful for my trauma and thankful for my tragedies, because I couldn't even imagine living a better life than I am right now. It's
100%. Yeah, no, and
very inspiring.
I see my friend A-Rod, Bronson and Bronson, they're good friends with the police officer who I'd taken out, and they gave me like, I don't know. I fish a lot of Shimano, but they gave me like St. Croix and Lew's reels and all this stuff. Like they're like, get back out fishing. It was so friggin' amazing. And, I just couldn't be more grateful. But it also reminded me that I do need to go with this, and you do need to stop holding back and expand it and get more people out fishing and get it out there and formalize it as a form of therapy.
Absolutely. Christine, I have to ask, obviously your dad had a good part in shaping you as an angler and as a person, but who was your mentor? Who inspired you to create Mindful Fishing? Who was it that was that solid rock in your life that said, I got to do this?
Oddly enough, I think a lot of it was my dad. He suffered from mental illness. He unfortunately died at the age of 58 with cancer. But when he died, he even said, at least I'm not going to suffer anymore. It was awful. He was, suffered with bipolar disorder. He was a really successful dentist in town, smart man, so personable. He worked with all of the disabled people, anybody on Ontario Works, anybody with any disability, geriatrics. I got his heart from, my heart from him. I got my love of fishing for him. And looking back, I know that fishing was his therapy too. Right. And, and I have such vivid memories of us out on the boat, and I have 4 siblings, and we'd rent a cottage up in Cloyne in the summer, and my dad would sneak into the room and just wake me up out of the 5 of us, and him and I would go out in the water. And, it's those memories that bring me back and that make this, because he taught me how to fish old school, which is such a big part of mindful fishing. It's not the pressure of electronics and competition and catching the biggest fish. It's more about watching, where are the birds? Where are the fallen trees? What's nature telling you to find those fish? And I've had success doing that, but it's also reducing people's budgets. It's getting them out on the water, not being intimidated by it, and finding the signs that nature is giving you about where the fish are, and it works. But I wouldn't have known that without my dad, right? It's I broke the adapter. I had my Helix 5 on my boat here. I busted it. I'm an idiot. Sometimes I'm clumsy, and I broke it on a rock in my bay. I haven't had electronics on my boat in 3 weeks. I'm still going fishing and catching them. Like, I really am going out looking for the birds and looking for where the fish are surfacing, and it's been successful.
That's awesome. Well, you've answered most of the questions that we have in the comments. Yvonne, have you got a couple more to go?
Yeah, I just have a couple, not questions, but to help out, if you like, have some Shimano Celis rods and Sedona reels. They're gently used that I could give to you for your program. And I don't know what you've had replaced, but, certainly you're welcome to them.
Oh,
and,
I'm not, you know what? I hate to take stuff. Like, I'm not one of those people, right? We're all generous, but it's like, you know what? I'm going to take it because it's for first responders, and I'm okay with it. So yes.
And the other thing is and I'm going to find that GoFundMe link. Usually what we do with each ladies' night is we have a giveaway. It's based on a question, from the interview. But what we're going to, I think, do a little bit different is if you want to enter the draw, and I'll post this on our website, is they have to make a donation through that GoFundMe link to your program. Awesome. And it doesn't matter if it's a little bit or a lot, but that's if they want to be in the draw, that's what they have to do. Well,
I can guarantee you tonight, CFN will be donating $50 to your program because you're doing some fantastic work. Walter and I have a group called Hooks for Heroes that do something very similar, but unfortunately with COVID, we haven't been able to do what we wanted to do. So I can assure you, we will definitely be partnering up with you in the future to hopefully, increase the reach of this program. But more so than anything, if we can just get one person who suffers with PTSD out on the water and show them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you can find an escape through the outdoors and fishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is. Yep. That's all I wanted to do. Yeah. And I've saved a couple, so it's more than that. No, it's I just, everybody keep doing what they're doing. I love everybody's posts. I love all the pictures I see. I love everything about fishing. So it's
fantastic. Well, listen, absolutely. And a lot of people have mentioned that they could listen to this segment all night and some of your empowering initiatives and just you as a person. You've certainly inspired a lot of us tonight to, I have to say, get off our arse and do something to make
it's just fishing. It's just fishing. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Christine, thanks so much. Yvonne, I will let you say goodbye to this incredible guest for us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for sharing your story. I think that anybody watching is really, as myself as well, is very inspired by what you've gone through and what you're doing for others.
I'm very thankful. Yeah. I don't want to cry, so let's go.
Okay. Very good, Christine. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and we'll do what we can to give you a hand whenever that is. So don't hesitate to reach out to CFN and OWA for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Sure.
Right on.
Okay. Thanks again.
Take care. Christine. Holy smokes, Yvonne.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
that's the way it should be.
Yeah. I mean, man, I don't know what else could give you a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside better than hearing Christine's plight and where she's come from and where she plans to go and the fact that she thinks about others before herself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. Well, as always, Yvonne, you always hit it out of the park with our guests. This one was no exception. And again, on behalf of all of CFN here, we truly thank you for what you do to bring our community some enlightened people, some enlightened moments, and some vision forward so that we can get involved and do things ourselves and make a difference.
Yes. Anytime, Scotty.
Right on. Appreciate it, Yvonne.
All right. Have a good night.
You take care. Oof, I tell you, incredible. Absolutely incredible. We are so honored to have Yvonne and all of our great guests. Christine, keep up the great work. Now, we've got it interesting, as we mentioned at the forefront. We are going to bring all the panel members on. we're going to discuss your questions, your concerns, things that you just want to talk about. But this will be right after this word. Well, lads, how was
Good evening.
Good.
I kind of feel like this segment is not going to be as powerful as the one just before this.
Yeah, I'm out after that. I don't know. I got nothing to follow up.
Smokes, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I just got here. I caught the last five minutes, and I'm inspired.
I don't know how you couldn't be, to be honest with you, Jim. What this incredible lady Christine has gone through, and what she is intending to give back and continuing to give back. Even though she wrestles with her own PTSD, but she wants to heal others, and she's thinking about others before herself. Blew me away. But as always, Yvonne always brings on mentoring and inspiring guests, and this one Christine was just that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been following her on Facebook for a few months now, and like the stuff she's up to, it's incredible what she's been doing. And I encourage others to follow her story as well and keep following it. It's great.
100%. So speaking of inspiring, Jason, Trevor, who is joining us, you want to talk a little bit about how well they did and
Trevor,
agony of defeat.
I think he might reach out to Big Jim for some counseling on a close but unsuccessful tournament for Trevor. But all joking aside, this past weekend was the Ontario Bass Nation High School Championship. It was out of Cajun Cove Resort up at the top of upper end of Pigeon Lake. And so the event was on Tri-Lakes. Shout out to Cajun Cove Resort. Like they really are great hosts. The event was held to crown a high school champion for Ontario. Trevor teamed up with another young angler, AJ Dubé from Etobicoke, and Anthony Dubé was their coach, who's AJ's dad. And they went out, and the first day they fished, and they came in with 8 pounds and change, and they were all down till they realized they were in fourth place. You don't got to catch 15 pounds. You just got to catch the biggest bag of that day. And they were 2 pounds out of the lead. And then they came in with 7.5 pounds. And one of the few teams, I'll mind you, to catch a limit both days. So I'm pretty proud of them. And 2 pounds short. So they came in third, 2 pounds short of making it to the U.S. championship, national championship next year. So, but I said to Trevor, like, some of the kids in this event, like not even kids, these are young men. They've been doing this for a few years. The winners, the winning team, one of the members is Jacob Kavanaugh, who's Mark Kavanaugh's nephew, fishes with his dad, Darren. Like, these kids are serious sticks. And I think Trevor, being his first bass tournament, coming in third with his partner, AJ, I said, you guys got a lot to be proud of. So congrats to those. And Scotty, I think I'd like to do at some point this winter, we're going to do a show on the high school program for Bass Nation because we need to grow it. It's really kind of fallen off with COVID. And so you and I I'm going to connect you with Curtis Cronkite, who's the youth director for Ontario Bass. And we got to grow this high school program and make it as big as we can. So we'll do that this winter some point. All right.
Challenge accepted. I'm in.
Okay.
100%.
Great.
Jim, you've been busy in the back, enjoying what is probably going to be the last days of summer. No, I know I just said that. I didn't say the 4-letter word, but no, we have to appreciate what we have left of what weather we're getting and anticipate on what weather we're going to get, but take full advantage of it as you have been. Tell us how tonight went.
Yeah, I appreciate, this morning, it was so beautiful this morning. I went out and I did a couple of things really early, like left here at 5:45 and got them done. I was back home 9:30, 10. And when I came home up the road here, I pulled in at the back part of the house down the back and went down by the water and sat there for about 5 minutes and finished the cold coffee I had. And I took a picture of the water and I thought, wow, I'm just absolutely blessed to live right here. Last night I went down there and fishing sucked, and then right at the end before I left, I caught about a 3.5 pound largemouth. And then I came up and I got Tammy and we went to look for deer, and we probably saw 35, 40 deer.
Wow.
Maybe more. It was one of those things where you're looking on one side and there's 5 right there, and you don't want to look away because they're going to be crossing the road in front of you, like 50 feet ahead of you.
Yeah.
And then I look at Tammy and I said, hey, remember you always saying you've never seen a buck up close with the velvet on its antlers? And she goes, yeah. And I lean back in the seat and put the window down and go. Wow. He's standing on 1 foot on the road, and he's looking right in the window of the truck. He's literally 6 feet away from us. Got the little back twisty, windy road. It's about five minutes from Yvonne's house. But
that's incredible.
It's absolutely horribly rugged back there. And I don't think there's any hunting goes back on there, because it's those deer are like mountain goats. I'm not kidding. It's pretty wild back in there.
Yeah.
It's the highest piece of the Canadian Shield here just before it crosses the border, so to speak. And they're all up in there. It's just absolutely amazing. But we saw probably 35, 40. And then, we went for a little ride around the block and got home. But I said, when you got that 10 minutes from your house, you can catch a bass in the back. Now, I'm going to be selling all my fishing rods, though, because I didn't even see a fish tonight.
Well, see, and this is my segue.
It's like being Lawrence Gunther and going fishing. I didn't like it.
Oh, well, listen, and the one thing that this demonstrates it is a great segue from our guest that we had on Friday, Chris Hockley. One of the great character attributes that an angler should have and possess is a certain sense of just being humble, right? Everybody should be humble. And I certainly I saw that with Chris. I mean, he's achieved a lot of things. He's done a lot in this industry, and, being in charge of Pier Fishing at one point, and now, Rapala, which has always been the mainstay when it comes to tackle, whether it be North America, Canada, or the world. Rapala is a well-known name. But the one thing that I got from our interview with him was how humble he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, pretty well. That's why he's lasted, eh?
Yeah.
You got to be one or two. You got to be an absolute Attila the Hun, and then nobody likes you. But if you do your job well, they keep you around. So why not just be there and be a nice guy, be a good guy, and then you don't have to worry about people talking about you behind your back. And even if they do, the people they're talking to know that it's not true. So it's one of those
100%.
things. I have guys. I'll have somebody here tonight message me and say, "Did you really not catch any fish?" Yeah. Everybody thinks we all go up because we won a whole bunch of tournaments and caught a whole bunch of fish, won a bunch of money, and continue to catch a bunch of fish. That we don't have bad days. Let me tell you, it happens to the best of us.
100%.
Yeah.
Speaking of humble, Lawrence, my friend, as I said, we couldn't talk behind your back because you'd hear us. It wouldn't matter if you were in the next room or in the next area code. Somehow you would hear us. But tell us what you've been up to lately and what we can look forward to with Lawrence Gunther and Lawrence Gunther Outdoors.
Well, we are filming and videoing podcasts and some video material up in the Calabogie Highlands. So we traveled up to Griffiths, and from there we went on with a side-by-side and an ATV up into the Calabogie Hills, And man, those roads just peter out and peter out and peter out, but they go forever. There's hundreds and hundreds of lakes back in there, and some, the further you go, the less you'll encounter signs of humanity, right? So
Right.
we went in pretty far, and we stopped the machines. We walk in the last little bit, as it was too narrow to bring the machines in. And one thing right away I noticed, there wasn't a single sound of humanity. No road sounds at all. No human sounds. No chainsaws, lawn mowers. No. I asked my daughter, do you see any signs of humanity? She goes, no, nothing. And we got to the shore. We getting our fishing rods out, and we noticed 3 smallmouth bass right near the shore, and they're just swimming around looking at us. Like they don't care who we are. You're not afraid. And then a school of 15 brook trout come over, and the smallmouth go, "Oh, we're out here," and they're not afraid of us. So these are fish that rarely, if ever, see human beings, right? And so it was pretty cool.
That is awesome. Well, I have to say, and Christina basically has touched on the first question so far. Jay, you've already kind of answered it, but we'll talk about it. This time of year, obviously, water temperatures are pretty much at their max. You're not going to see them increase too much more going forward, depending, of course, where you are. You're going to start to see the decline. But with that, you're going to see that flip over in the lake, and the top 3 feet are going to be at a different temperature in a couple months. In the meantime, we're starting to see walleye and smallmouth commonly hang out and group together more often than ever before. Is that a true assumption, or it's always been that way?
They group together a lot. Like in a lot of shield lakes, a lot of lakes, inland lakes in Ontario, they group together pretty regularly. They're usually keying in on the same bait. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I was just going to say, all the tournaments that have been on the St. Lawrence River here, and I'm talking the big ones like the Elites and MLF and that stuff, I can't believe the number of guys that have held up 2-3 pound walleyes and said, we're going to eat well tonight because they caught them in practice, and they're keeping them. I mean, these fish, they're always together. I mean, it's not about a fish being with a bunch of other fish. It's about fish using the same real estate. Yeah. It's like going to a restaurant and seeing a whole bunch of different people there. They could be, some could be lawyers. It could be the guy owns the bar down the street having lunch. It could be the guy that sweeps the streets at night. A delivery guy. You're all different, but you're all the same. You're all in there for the same reason, to get something to eat. And that's what most of the fish, are there for. They're there for something to eat and safety.
It doesn't apply to large pike or muskie though, and you see that ice fishing, right? You'll be on a school of walleye, and the bite's good, or panfish is good, and all of a sudden the screen on the fish finder just goes blank, and then a big mark comes in, right? And it's usually a big 30-inch pike or a 40-inch muskie or something like that. And when those cruise through, the rest flee, or the panfish just hit the bottom. They just hit the bottom literally and just lie on the bottom, and hopefully they're not getting noticed. And then when the big fish moves off, the panfish, boom, you can see them rise up from the bottom.
100%. And I don't know, I got to ask, is fall fishing your most favorite time of year, or spring fishing? Because I have to say, fall reminds me of someone who loves sports and is sitting on the couch and can't pick what sport to watch, because baseball's is at the playoff level. College football started, pro football has started. You got the CFL, you've got hockey that's starting to get ready. Like, this is, if you're a sports lover, this is your time of year. But the unfortunate thing is, you got to keep your head on a swivel when it comes to angling. Is this your favorite time of year, Jay?
Oh, man, Scotty, I fish so much year round for everything. But, I think for each season, there's things that I love. And I love the fall time of year. One, you know what? I like the hot weather, but I don't like it too hot. I kind of like this time of year where it's comfortable to be out in the water all day. Like this past weekend was just beautiful. We're talking, it was 20 degrees, 22 degrees. The water temps were in the low to mid 60s, depending on what part of the lake you're in. As low as 64, as high as 68, maybe up to 70 on Saturday. It was pretty hot. Just love this time of year. And the fish are just feeding up. One of the things I love to do in the fall is fish deep weeds. in some of these central Ontario lakes. And why do I like that? You don't know what you're going to catch.
Yeah.
It's big largemouth, big smallmouth, big walleye, trip over the odd muskellunge. Like, and that pattern can hold all summer, but that deep weed pattern in the fall, just basically park yourself on a weed line. And what do you want to throw? You want to throw a jig, you want to throw a drop shot, you want to crank it, throw a jerk bait in the fall. Like, just a great place to set yourself up and have some fun on some of these shield lakes. And then that pattern will hold until that lake flips over. You'll catch fish on that deep weed. Once the lake flips over, the fish might scatter a bit more, some of those shallower fish. But until that flips over, until the water temperature gets into the high 50s, that pattern will hold. So it'll be holding for another month. It's a great time to get out if you can. The challenge with the fall is the weather. So as the longer you go in the fall, the more extreme the weather gets. And I think we have to cherry pick our days. But the fall fishing can be great. If you can get out there on one of those warm fall days, boy, the fishing can be good. Some of the best days of the year on those days.
Right on. Lawrence, why do you like the fall?
It's I've been talking to my muskie friends here on the Ottawa River, and it's a difficult time right now because we're still in the low 70s, very low 70s, high 60s, and it hasn't really started that turnover yet. Where the large, deep, the muskies that have been lying in the deep water haven't come into the shallows to start feeding yet. So you still are dealing with the resident summer muskie, that have been fished all summer heavily, and they've been caught and released a couple times maybe, and they're a little beat up, and they've got lampreys on them, and they're looking a little worse for wear. But when these big fish come out of the depth and go into these weed beds and feed up for the winter, that's the miracle time. And that's going to we're a week away from that, and that'll last maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. But that's going to be the time where you can catch 50+ inch fish that are just absolutely spotless because they've been in the deep channels of the Ottawa River or the St. Lawrence River, and now they're coming in to chow down before the weeds die off and winter sets.
That's awesome. Jim, I know you love fishing no matter what the season, but is there something that tweaks your interest when it comes to fall?
Yeah, I'd say that probably 75% of the best days I've ever had fishing in my life come after September 1st. Wow. The days when you catch 75 largemouths on a jig, that type of stuff when you just absolutely crush fish. And, I hear these people say, oh, yeah, they're fattening up for the fall. Well, they started fattening up that big female largemouth or smallmouth or walleye. They started fattening up for the fall the day the last egg fell out of them. They take a couple of days. Like all these guys are saying, oh, look at the fall football. Have you watched the tournaments in the St. Lawrence, the smallmouths this year? Yeah. It's scary. It's absolutely scary. These smallmouths, like if you took a pin to their belly, they would explode. They're absolutely full. They can't get anything else. They don't just eat in the last few weeks. They eat all summer, like all summer. They're just chowing, and like the walleyes. They spawn in Quinte. They go out into Lake Ontario. They go like this with their mouth, and they swim until October when they come back into the Bay of Quinte. And the junk is just going in. It's just going in the front and out the back. And that's what they do. They circle around the eastern basin of Lake Ontario back into the Bay of Quinte for the winter, and then they all spawn again. These fish just eat and eat and eat. I mean, there isn't somebody rings a bell on September 10th and says, okay, guys, run down to the lake. It's time to eat now. Get as much as you can get. It doesn't work like that. These things just eat all year. Yeah. I watch them out here at night when I sit out here. They're just blasting these panfish. You see bunches of panfish, 5-6 inches long, and they make like a swooshing sound because like 50 of them jump out of the water at once. And when it happens and you're not looking at it, when it's off to one side, it's really impressive then because something this big can still go about this far off the seat. It scares the heck out of you when you hear the noise of them out there feeding. Like they're eating and chowing all the time.
Now, would you say, and Jay, this might be geared more towards you, but when it comes to targeting fish in the fall, when their metabolism is sped up because of the warmer waters of the summer, they can eat, I would say, more frequently than they can in the fall. So you really got to be on your game in the fall, because with that metabolism starting to slow down a tad, they're not going to be as violent, or they aren't going to take as much opportunity to catch fish. Is that a true statement, or?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they still feed pretty actively. What's happening in the fall with a lot of the larger predators, and we're talking, let's say, even, whether you're talking walleye, pike, muskie, even smallmouth and largemouth, what they're doing is they want to have a lot of reserve for that winter period. The biggest, hardest time for fish in northern latitudes is winter. That winter is the hardest time to get through. They have to survive the winter. Yes, fish do feed under the ice, but they don't grow a lot under the ice. They can ingest food, but they can't turn that into energy because it's so cold. So they're going to feed a lot. And I don't think that they're feeding so much. They have so much opportunity to feed that they're harder to catch. I think we have to change how we look for them. We have to change, you might want to consider, well, where are the bait fish? Where are they going? Jim touched on these movements of these walleye. Those are seasonal. Those happen for a reason. They're chasing big schools of shad, for example, into the Bay of Quinte. Where are those walleye going? They're going up to their spawning rivers, right? So these are all seasonal patterns, and a lot of times they move around bait fish patterns. Why is Lake St. Clair such a musky hotbed, especially around some of the river mouths along Lake St. Clair? It's shad. What happens is the shad, as the water temperatures cool, the shad seek out warmer water. Even if it's a few degrees, that's up in the river mouths. Where do the muskie go? Into the river mouth. Once those river mouths cool down and reach lake temperature, those shad disperse. That muskie bite's kind of done with. And usually by that time, it's not even safe to be out there anymore, for crying out loud. So they will just keep feeding, Scotty. They will keep feeding. You might have to slow down your presentation. They might not be moving as quickly, but you just have to, just follow that bait and try and do your best to mimic what they want to eat. Whether it's it might be the size of lure, could be the cadence of the lure. It's probably going to be both.
Right on. Lawrence, you depend heavily on your sense of feeling and touch. In the fall, obviously, things get a little cooler, as Jay says. Sometimes we don't have the best of weather. How do you make sure that you can always be in touch with your rod, and how do you keep your hands warm so that you can feel that bite?
Well, that's a good question. I have a Salis life jacket, Salis Marine, and it's got big fuzzy mitten pockets in the front. So, I mean, your hands are wet. You've just played fish. I just stick my hands in there. They dry. They warm up, and I have all sorts of different gloves. And, you can buy really just thin gloves that, if they get wet, just change them out. And they're not expensive, right? You can buy these gloves for $7, $8, $10 a pair at these outdoor stores. Instead of buying one super expensive pair, just buy a bunch of cheap ones and just have them with you. And then if they get wet and it's really blowing hard, just take them off and put on a dry pair again. It's important to keep your hands warm. But, we were out Sunday morning on Centennial Lake, and it was, I think, about 4 degrees, and it was really foggy and misty, and there was no sun yet. And the fish were just, they were either right in the back, tucked in under the lily pads, the bass, or the weed beds, or they were deeper into the deeper weed beds, but they weren't moving. And we had to just slow things down so much with small rubs and just suspend them, drop it right on their head, and you wouldn't even feel them hit. It was just, they would just take it and hold it. And if you didn't know what was going on, if you couldn't figure that out, they would just spit it out again because you wouldn't even set the hook. You didn't know. But by 9 o'clock, the sun was shining. The fog had burnt off. It's clear water, so the sun was penetrating into the depths, and the fish started coming out to play. And at that point, the strikes all changed. They were aggressive strikes. They were competing with each other. You reel one smallmouth in, there was 3 or 4 smallmouths with it, full on summer conditions. So you can see this change in how they react to the cold in these days now. Normally early morning on the water is a good time to catch fish. This time of year with bass, you might as well just sleep in a little longer because it's so much sun dependent.
Right on. I have to ask too, and I'll start with you, Jim. Having Chris on Friday sort of brought this question to mind. The fall has somehow been generalized as the best time to use crankbaits. Is the fall bite a good time to use crankbaits, or does it not really matter?
Well, yeah, it's crankbaits cover a lot of water, and that's one of the things is finding active fish. Like generally, a fish in colder water, he will not travel as far to get a lure, even if he sees it. So you have to get it. Like they talk about things called strike windows, and they apply all year. It's just how far a fish, once he sees something, is going to move to get it. And in the fall, 90% of the days that window just gets smaller. If it goes by him, he's going to eat it. But crankbaits allow you to cover a lot of water, especially if you're fishing, anywhere near a turnover. It's just because the fish could be dispersed; they can be anywhere. But like if I know a lake has turned over, I used to fish up a lot where Lawrence was talking about up toward Calabogie and Halliburton in the back there. We used to fish up there a lot, and I've seen the difference where you would be on one lake and you'd be fishing one day, and the next day you'd get there and there's junk floating all over the top of the water. I don't mean human garbage. I mean like leaves and that bubbly looking stuff off the bottom. So the lake turned over. The water went down. The warm water, it pushes it all around. We would pack the boat up and go to another lake, go to a shallower lake or a deeper lake that hadn't turned over yet, and catch the heck out of the fish after beating your head on a wall for a few hours. And there's just easier ways to do it. Like unless it's the only lake you have access to or something, fishing a lake that's turned over is really hard. And like I said, the colder it gets, it's about going slower. But everybody thinks a crankbait, because it says crank, means fast. It doesn't necessarily mean fast. It's just what you do with it. You generally keep it moving, but you can keep a crankbait moving really slowly.
Right on.
Once it dives down to that depth and you maybe feel it touch the bottom once in a while, you can slow that handle down and be barely turning it. And as long as you can feel that bait touch something once in a while, and it becomes a real easy target for the fish. Because if it goes zipping by, there's a good chance in the end of September, October, into November, they're just going to go, okay, I'll wait for another sunfish to go by. It's just like they're not gonna chase things. So that general thing, I think Lawrence mentioned, and Jay did too, about just slowing down, and just being a little more methodical. But you have to cover a lot of water, because you can't. If you're not fishing where the fish are, you can't catch them.
Amen.
And you have to go where the fish are, and you got to remember that these fish are in this thing where they're trying to leave the shallow water, but they want to go back, and they go back and forth, and it's almost like every time they go back, they go 6 inches less. And they go, 6 inches further, and it's this back and forth thing, and eventually they go back and forth enough until they're off the deep water. I was talking to Brian Brosdahl once, and I said, a tip, guys starting to ice fish. Guys go out now and they fish so late now, which is something you did not see 20 years ago. They fish right till it freezes now. And he told me, get the best basin in the lake, so the deepest water in the lake. Look at the shore, find your best weed lines that you know, and fish behind you. Because they come out to the edge of the weeds and they eventually get off the weeds just a bit, just a little bit. And it's something that's really, really, really true. And I've told so many people that story, and they've sent me notes or phoned me or whatever and said, "Oh, like I did what you told me to do." And I said, "Well, that's just one guy learning from another. Just like I learned it from Brosdahl, he told me, and I already knew this stuff, but it was the way that he addressed to say it, to explain it to you, that makes the difference. And it's really, really true. It really is."
What's one of your favorite baits? And obviously it'll be species specific, Jim. But what's one of your favorite baits to toss in the fall? What's one of your go-tos that it's fall time? This is the bait I'm going to.
A lot of jigs.
Yeah.
Getting in deeper water, and even with even if I'm using a flipping jig type thing, I'm not flipping it. I'm casting it there and retrieving it. I'll use it almost like a swim jig, really. Almost like a swim jig. I'm not just swimming it, but I'll cast it out, throw it up towards shallower water, maybe into 6, 8, 10 feet of water, and just bring it, let it sink down down close to the weeds or into the weeds. and just sort of bring it back in little hops and bumps. Make it an easy target for the fish, and it still allows you to cover a lot of water.
Yeah,
right
and
on.
you can roll a spinner bait with a big
Yeah.
single-bladed spinner bait. That's one of my favorite things. And I've had some dynamite days doing that.
Lawrence, I will have to say you probably would agree with Jim when it comes to spinnerbait, but what is your go-to bait in the fall? Obviously species specific, but what do you like throwing in the fall?
In the fall, in October, and when the bass you can't seem to find them anywhere, right? And I don't know where the heck they go eventually, but they just disappear. The weeds are dead. The bass, they're gone. They're hiding somewhere, and there's, the small ones go. But whatever. I don't like to knock myself on the head. I go after a different species. I go after whitefish, and I use little jigging wraps, like 1.5 to 2 inch jigging wraps on a light action rod with 6 pound test fluoro and attached to some braid. And we just look around in deep water, you're 50, 75, 100 feet deep, and you'll see marks, a lot of marks, maybe 50 feet down, 60 feet down, and you just drop down to them. And those little jigging wraps, they move so gently, and they're so natural. They look like a dying prey fish. And those whitefish, man, they just love them, absolutely love them. But you got to use some scent on them, because whitefish have very delicate mouths, and they're bottom feeders, so they're used to eating dead stuff off the bottom. They come along and they taste everything. So rub that thing well with some waxy scent that'll stay on, and you'll feel it. You'll feel a little bump. And then don't even set the hook. Just wait, and they'll lip their lips literally. And within 5 seconds, usually takes 4 or 5 seconds for them to figure out that taste. Hey, that tasted good. And then they come back and they bang it, and you've got them. And it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And whitefish are so underappreciated. Everyone wants to go lake trout and this and that and all these, trophy, prestige fish. But whitefish are delicious, and they're plentiful, and no one's targeting them. Not as much as they should. There's a lot of them.
That's awesome. Jay, got to ask you the same question. What's your go-to?
Well, because I'm staring at them right now. Swim bait.
Yeah.
A little swim bait, like what a lot of anglers don't think about is you got, I like to slow it down, but you got to maintain bottom contact with a lot of the baits you're fishing in the fall. So although during the summer, I'm going to fish that probably on a ball head, a jig, or a darter head fairly quickly. But I've really gotten into dragging that on a football head, and just literally dragging it on the bottom. So when you're retrieving it, as that football head's rolling over the rocks and over the sand, that tail is, so it almost looks like a bait fish, like nosing on the bottom, right? And, whether you're on Lake Erie dragging for smallmouth, or whether you can use this on a weed line for walleye and largemouth, it is a great bait. And and you can change the size depending on what lake you're in and what the fish are after. But usually in the fall though of the year, I'm going to go. That's a 4. I think it's a 4.3 power swimmer. Like I'm going to go to that size in the fall, whereas in the summer I'm usually using a 3.3 or maybe a 3.6 inch power swimmer, but I'm going to go to that bigger swim bait in the fall. And I think that's a great all-purpose bait, but it's just, again, I can't stress enough, it's maintaining that bottom contact. And I fish with a lot of anglers who don't maintain their bottom contact, and you lose track of the bottom, whether you're flipping a jig or or swimming a swim bait. Those fish are going to have a hard time catching up to it. That's just my opinion. I always got to know where the bottom is and feel that bottom. But I got to give a shout out though, because one of the best baits to throw in the fall is a jig, but not a rubber jig, like a hand-tied Big Jim jig is one of the best baits to throw in a fall. I have caught more. Listen, first time I ever used a jig such as that, I'm not going to say which one I used because I was so long I forget the guy who tied it for me. But we were drifting in a John boat, milfoil beds on rice. And we were dunking these marabou jigs as the wind just drifted us along. And we were catching big bass and big walleye, dunking it in the milfoil beds. We're only fishing a weed line, dunking it in the holes. That's a great fall pattern in the Kawartha Lakes, and that'll work on any lake that has good green weed growth in the fall.
Great question Christina has, and I know we've touched on it, you and I, before, but they went 2 weeks ago for pink salmon fishing, pre-spawn, obviously. Why are the regs okay with fishing salmon and some trout species during spawn, but closed for other species such as walleye or bass during spawning time? I'd like, Christina, I'm with you. Even with walleye, you see the Detroit River anglers lining up along the shoreline during spawn. It seems to go against the grain of thought.
Well, for the salmon, specifically, we don't have a lot of natural reproduction of Pacific salmon in the Great Lakes. They're all introduced. So pink salmon, Chinooks, coho. There is reproduction that happens, but a lot of the cases where anglers are targeting them, and I'm going to use that now. I'm not exactly sure where Christina was catching hers, but a lot of times the issue is the quality of the habitat where they're being targeted. So I'll talk about the Lake Ontario trip, Scotty. So September 30th, the trout water closes on all Southern Ontario tributaries. What remains open is the fall extended season, which is pretty much, it depends on what region you're in, but it's usually from like Highway 2 down or the 407 down. You got to check your regs. A lot of the quality trout water and the quality spawning water is above those areas. So once those Chinooks and cohos make it up past those areas on September 30th, they're protected, the ones that make it through. There are fish, for example, in downtown Port Hope that are trying to spawn on those limestone shelves that they swim past. They're probably not spawning very successfully. I don't know that for sure, but if you want to fish for them there, because that's where those fish decided to try and make a red and go at it, you can have at them. The ones that make it through up the fishway, over the dam, and gone, they have a chance of surviving. And for the most part, pinks don't make it over the first barrier. They can't. They're too little. In fact, on Lake Erie, we get pinks down here sometimes too. Usually in September, a short window, you'll catch the odd pink salmon. They don't successfully spawn that I'm aware of, but they do come in. People target them, but they never make it past the first barrier. They're just too small. They can't jump it like their cousins can. So, and there's no money invested in protecting those fish from harvest, because if there's no viable population, it's not really worth protecting if we know they're not spawning successfully. The trade-off, the other side of that, though, is if we're talking game fish like walleye and bass, and let's talk about just being selective in our harvest. We have to practice that all the time. How many times have we talked on this program about, and we get it from the doc himself, from Gord, greed, right? 100%. So if you want to catch those big walleye in the spring, or even late in the fall, those big quinny walleye, those are all pre-spawn. The ones you're catching in late November and December, those are pre-spawn fish. You're doing just as much damage to a fishery on those ones in the late fall as you are catching them in April. But rivers like the Detroit, though, Christina, are very different. They're monitored very carefully. Like the U.S. and Canadian agencies monitor those stocks carefully and how much recruitment that they're seeing. And in the end, they'll change those regs to protect those stocks. But there's so many walleye in the Detroit, they want to also create opportunities for anglers, because if you close everything, what are anglers going to do, right? So that's a fishery that's open to us, the St. Clair River, Detroit River, as walleye anglers, whereas other areas are protected, like the inland rivers, like, in Southern Ontario, we have the Thames, the Grand, and other systems that are protected, that those walleye can go spawn protected while anglers can go elsewhere to fish for them.
Right on.
Yeah.
Jim, what's upcoming in your world this week?
I just want to show one thing before I go. It's we're talking about single-bladed spinner baits.
Yeah.
So it's the spinner bait. See how short the arm is? The blade doesn't go past the body.
Yeah.
Big flat body, three-quarters of an ounce, one big single blade, and look at the ball bearing swivel, the way it spins. It has to have that. You pull it, you let it flutter down, the blade's rotating, it helicopters down You lift it up, the blade spins, you feel it goes up and down. It allows you to fish really, really slowly. This is something that I had down to an absolute art when I used to fish in the fall. So in the fall was when I fished. It was all I did in the fall. I would fish like, I'm not kidding, like I would fish like 4 days a week for largemouths and, muskies and walleyes. The number of walleyes, I've gone out on days, muskies, walleyes, largemouths, smallmouths, all types of fish, fishing those big single bladed, like that weighs 3/4 of an ounce. And you just let it flutter down. Now you'd probably fish it on 20-pound fluorocarbon. Back then it was 25-pound mono because you didn't know what you were going to hit.
Right.
But when you're using a 3/4 ounce bait like that, it's incredible. Yeah, we're just finishing up Just Fishing, the fall issue. Got a lot of new stuff in there. We got a couple of good articles by Mr. Pfizer. We got Al Lindner in there again. I've got Bernie Schultz, Gussie, David Chong. Hey, Dave, if you're watching, we need an article. And
You're late.
or the vice president will be on you, and I'm not the vice president.
Uh-oh.
But
Right on.
is right.
Lawrence, what's coming up for you this week?
Well, we're just planning a series of webinars on the Great Lakes, and we're gonna follow. It's a process, and we want to unfold this. And we're hoping we're going to attract a lot of anglers. We know we're going to attract a lot of water quality advocates and biologists and so on. But the Great Lakes are going through such a transition. So the first seminar is going to be an introductory seminar. It's going to be 3 presenters, 15 minutes on toxins, the history of toxins and current toxins, and why should we care? The second 15 minutes is going to be on the fish and the impact of these toxins on the fish. And the third 15-minute segment is going to be on the people that eat these fish and why should they care and what should they know and what are they being told, not told, and what do we need to do to make sure we're eating and able to eat, safe fish and put an end to the need to have these fish consumption advisories, right? These we shouldn't have to live with fish consumption advisories and our children and grandchildren. They shouldn't have those. We should be able to clean that up. It's like clean drinking water, right? We should have clean fish to eat out of the Great Lakes. We shouldn't have fish consumption advisories. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have an engagement where people can feedback, and then we're going to dig into each of those 3 subjects in more fulsome detail with panels on 3 subsequent webinars. So that's on the planning. So to begin with, we'll be releasing a Bluefish Radio podcast next week from an expert from the National Wildlife Federation who's done 20 years of research on fish consumption advisories in the Great Lakes.
Awesome. Wow, look forward to that. Holy smokes. Jay, yourself, what's upcoming this week?
Well, I think sometime I was supposed to be out this week sampling fish, but I think I'm going to be building the annual fall arc.
Yeah.
I just put a post. Weather Network put out a warning today that some parts of Ontario are forecasted to see anywhere from, I heard up to 100 millimeters. That's probably too high, but I think it's safe to say a lot of us are going to see 25 to 50 millimeters of rain. That's going to really get the fall fishing season moving. So, we've been talking tonight about, a lot of species that we might target by boat. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to kickstart the fall steelhead and salmon season. It's already got a good jump on it already, and this is going to get it going in other places. And these water levels are going to bring fish in, and I predict that we're going to have an early start to fall salmon and trout fishing in Ontario with this big event this week. So I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend. I can't decide. I've actually I think, this house, we got a bit of a tournament hangover. I know Jim knows what that's all about. So we got and Lawrence too. We got a tournament hangover happening. I got a grade 9 upstairs who's too tired to go to school today.
Oh,
now I do know that I never seen him jump out of bed at 5 a.m. 2 mornings in a row like that because I know he didn't sleep for 2 nights. So I think he's pretty tapped out. But once we get over the tournament hangover, we'll get some fishing in this weekend. And who knows? I'll let you guys know next week what we got up to.
Right on, gentlemen. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And as always, for what you bring to the show, you certainly enlightened us with some great how-tos and some good tips on how we can approach our fall fishing and hopefully we don't all have to build an ark. I don't mind jumping in with you, Jay.
Well, but wait. I just got a polling update. I see Izumi's in the lead for Prime Minister. Do you guys see that? Izumi?
About friggin' time.
You guys know anything about this?
I didn't even know he was running, man.
The Fishing Party of Canada, the
awesome.
the FPC. Yeah. So good luck on election night. Let's all be kind to each other.
Amen.
Yeah,
all right, and we'll keep on rolling. We're gonna be here after. We're all gonna be here tomorrow anyway, so let's all be nice.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. Right on. On that note, guys, thanks so much, and we will see you next week.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
Thank you.
As always, we have the luxury of spending time with some great people. Thanks so much to Yvonne and, of course, Christine for coming on as our special guest. Inspiring. That's all I can say. That's the word of the day. Absolutely inspiring. And, of course, to our panel who came on and answered some great questions, gave us some great insight on what we should be looking forward to in the fall. And Jeanette, to your point in your great question, yes, we will definitely be doing a pre-ice fishing seminar, which will give us some how-tos as well as some safety tips. We did it last year. We plan to do it again this year. But the last word we are going to save for the man himself. This is about targets. Take it away, Gord Pizer.
And nobody understands, or very, very few people, and you guys have heard this all the time. The ministry, Saskatchewan government, allows me to have 4 walleye, so there can't be a problem. That's not what a limit is. A limit is if you don't know when to stop, we'll tell you when the maximum level of greed is. And it's 4 fish. It's not a target. It can't be a target.